you make heaps off the but that's just bull. I mean, the guy who imports it, yeah, I mean, it costs him between 10 and 30 grand a kilo max, and they take the risk of getting it in here. Then you got the guys that get it off them, and they make their profit. But then you got guys like me, buying in kilos and selling it on. I mean, you don't really get any higher than me unless you're born into it. I mean, who's going to say, you know what, you're a good bloke, let me introduce you to the guy who's importing the and you can cut me out of my level of profit. There was no one in Sydney who I knew that was supplying cocaine or heroin at any better rate or more successfully at my level. Now, this is how it works. There are 36 ounces in a kilo. It's actually 35 and a half, but we always say 36. For cocaine, I sell an ounce for 7 grand. Now, 36 times 7, 252. So I make 32 grand, but that's after driving halfway across Sydney with a kilo of coke in my car, which if I get caught, I'm doing 10 years. Then you got to move the ounce of the 36 times. That's 36 times more you might get caught by the coppers or ripped by the buyer. And you don't move that in a week. Mate, it can take up to 2 months to move a kilo. The risk is just too big for an 11.5% profit margin. And that's why you get jumping on the gear and adding ingredients like glucose to it. So 1 kilo turns into 2, and then your profit margins increase. But then you've got to worry about the quality of the gear and make sure that you keep your customers. So you don't want to jump on it too much, or you'll get a reputation for supplying gear and you'll lose them. I had a reputation for selling top-notch gear. Now, this is how I did it. First thing I did was, when I got it, to test its purity. To do this, I'd get a gram of the gear, put it in a small glass bottle like a paprika bottle or a test tube, but most blokes don't have too many test tubes floating around. You need a long, slim bottle and you add 0.3 of a gram of bicarb soda, then the equal amount of water, and you boil a pot on the stove, dip the mix in a long, slim bottle into the boiling water, you cook it up. You dip it in about 10 minutes or so, and the gear turns into a rock. Now, the bicarb soda removes all the impurities and cooks them off to evaporate with the water, and then you're left with a rock. You then weigh the rock, and it will be a percentage of the original gram. Now, if the rock weighed 0.91 of a gram, the gear was 91% pure. I never jumped on coke that I sold because any knows how to cook it and find out its purity. I always told the buyer the purity, and you've got to be a man about that in this game. I mean, if they find out that the purity is lower than what you sold them, mate, they'll return it and then you're stuck with it, and no one will want it. With heroin, you normally just give a bloke a gram and he'll go away and test it. I mean, usually on some junkie. And then they'll come back to you and you'll sort something out. You had to be real careful when jumping on heroin though, because once you add too much glucose, you can't bring it back. I mean, it congeals like cement. Whereas with coke, you can bring it back by adding more pure coke. Mate, I only ever dealt in kilos and ounces, but I did heaps more kilos. It was too much work with ounces, but the profit was better. But with kilos, you make between 5 and 10 grand in one hit. That was it. As opposed to 32 grand in ounces, but it just took too long. There are 28 grams in an ounce, but I left those maths to the ones I dealt to. Mate, I never, ever sold a gram in my life.